So this weekend, the UFC is going to be returning to Canada. We're going to be going to Vancouver for an event headlined by Reinier as he does take on Brendan Allen in the main event. I actually think that for a fight night, this is a pretty solid card. Now, obviously, it doesn't rival any pay-per-views, but for a fight night in front of a crowd, this is pretty good. I think there's going to be a lot of finishes. I actually am going to be picking quite a few underdogs in this card as well. And I do feel like I might have a couple of hot takes that could age absolutely terribly should things not go my way on this card. But, you know, that is life. That is how we roll. If you, of course, did want to check out my Contender Series predictions, I have got a video out on my channel, and I did a collaboration with BitSam on the We Want Picks channel. And speaking of We Want Picks, if you do sign up with my code ARTEM, you will get 10% off your first membership to the We Want Picks premium subscription service. The guys did really well over the last couple of weeks. And of course, I have been doing my Contender Series articles, which admittedly have been very, very short over the last couple of weeks because, as you can imagine, it is that time of year again. My end of year exams are, of course, coming up. And honestly, I do think that my prediction videos over the next few weeks will probably be a little bit shorter, just given that fact. And at the moment, at me recording this video, it is 11 p.m. Now, it was either me do that or do what I did last week, which is record the video after driving for 10 hours on 5 white monsters. And I will admit that was probably the single worst video I've ever uploaded to this channel. I my I said a lot of things in that video that I do think are quite funny in hindsight. But anyways, we've got Melissa Croden taking on Thainara Lisboa in the start of the fight. And Thainara Lisboa is interesting to me because when she did win in her UFC debut, I thought that she could be quite good. She does have a professional kickboxing background, but then she did look really good against Rose Clark, got the submission. And then after that, it's, you know, it not really looked so impressive. And I guess in hindsight, a win over Jessica Rose Clark really doesn't mean anything. But she does take on Melissa Croden, who was signed to the UFC a few months ago, and she is also a pretty solid finisher. Does have a loss to Evelyn Martins, who is a pretty young up-and-coming prospect, I think actually signed to the PFL, if my knowledge is correct. And yes, that is correct. I do have MMA-tism. But anyways, I think that Thainara Lisboa does win this fight. She actually is a really good striker, and I do think she is better than Croden on the feet, and she has shown that she can hold it on the ground. So I'm going to be picking Lisboa to win a decision. Bekoev takes on Yousri Belgaroui. Now, this is where one of my sort of like hot takes of the fight kind of comes out. Now, this isn't like a hot take on the fight. I'm going to pick Bekoev. He's probably my most confident pick on the card, to be honest with you. However, I will say a couple of things. The first thing is I watched Azamat Bekoev in the LFA, and I thought this guy is going to look absolutely terrible in the UFC. Watch his fight against Dylan Budka. He looks like shit. He arguably even lost that fight, I will be honest. Like, it was just an awful, awful performance, and then he never really followed it up with anything crazy. And then he come into the UFC and he's knocking out Zach Reese. He's knocking out Ryan Loader. Now, admittedly, these guys aren't the top of the top, but if he can go out there and knock out Yousri Belgaroui on the feet, that would be a ridiculous statement, man, because Belgaroui, of course, a guy that has fought Alex Pereira. He's fought Israel Adesanya in kickboxing. He trains with Alex Pereira. Even fought Donovan Weiss, who's had a pretty solid kickboxing career in his own right. In MMA, though, I think that his skill set doesn't translate that well. His kickboxing style, sorry, I just hit my mic, doesn't really translate all that well to MMA. He fights from range. He's 6'5" with a 79-inch reach, but his head movement, it's just not that great. You know, he doesn't really, I mean, he's got the Alex Pereira head movement, which is where he just kind of barely avoids shots by moving forwards and backwards, but he doesn't do it as well as Alex Pereira does, in my opinion. And honestly, on the feet, he can look relatively slow. He can even look relatively, not all that impressive, I will admit, which is kind of crazy, given the credentials that this guy does have. Now, I would absolutely love it if Belgaroui actually moved up to 205 pounds. I personally think that his ceiling at 205 pounds is a lot higher than it is at 185. I think he must cut a lot of weight to make the weight class. And then, hear me out, I'd love to see Belgaroui fight Junior Tougher. I think that is the fight to make. Because I do think Bekoev wins. Now, I don't think Bekoev is actually going to win by knockout that I was mentioning before. If he comes in with a game plan, any game plan, it's going to be to wrestle. We've seen Belgaroui taken down before, and I do think he does get taken down by Bekoev, who just actually does have a lot of momentum right now and really could maybe make himself a big name in this sport. I think Bekoev wins by submission. Now, Stephanie Luciano takes on Ravena Oliveira. Stephanie Luciano's pretty fun. Of course, she did actually fight. I want to say, yes, it was on the Contender Series a long time ago now in a draw. And then from there, her striking's looked pretty decent, I would say. And I do think it has looked a lot better than Ravena Oliveira. Oliveira is one of those girls that just got signed out of nowhere last year. Hasn't really beaten anybody good. Lost to Thainara Lisboa. I think she loses to Luciano here. Luciana is a fighter who I do think could maybe once again make a name for herself, just given the fact that she is a very fun fighter. And this fight is at 115 pounds. So Ravena Oliveira cutting a lot of weight to make the weight here. Prepolec takes on Drew Dober. Now, I was really thinking to myself that Drew Dober is just going to go out there and potentially catch a body in this one here, because I just do not believe in Kyle Prepolec's skill set whatsoever. And normally I do keep things very PC on this channel, because I do know fighters do watch these videos. I do know that fighters' families watch these videos, because I do get the occasional DM on Instagram and are like, holy shit, my bad. But anyways, I just don't believe in Prepolec really at all. Now, the thing is, though, in this matchup, he could beat Dober, because all Dober does is just come forward. He never moves his head. He only throws combinations. But the thing is, I just don't believe in Prepolec's striking skill set to be able to land the straight punch that it's going to require to beat Dober. Now, Dober did have a pretty good chin at one point, but he's been knocked out a lot now and a lot recently. And I don't know if Prepolec has the power to knock out Dober, but when I first saw this matchup, I thought, oh my god, Dober's going to kill him. But now that I think about it a little bit more, Dober really is a very beatable fighter. But I just don't know if Prepolec has the skill set to be able to do it. So I'm going to be picking Dober to win by first round knockout in this matchup here. And I still do have a bit of confidence in him to do it. Now, Danny Barlow's moved up to middleweight, which could be a pretty good move for him, given the fact that he is 6'2" with a 79-inch reach. And he's taking on Djorden Santos, who I do believe, aside from Kevin Christian, if Kevin Christian is at 185 pounds, is the worst middleweight on the roster. So Danny Barlow should go out there and knock this guy out in less than half a round. Djorden Santos, I just don't think he's got any skills to speak of. I know that he looked decent against Aussie Diaz, but that's Aussie Diaz. I mean, let's be honest here, guys. I just think that Djorden Santos sucks. I think that Danny Barlow, maybe, given the fact that he did lose to Sam Patterson, his ceiling is a little bit lower. He had a pretty low volume, poor performance against Vera. So maybe the pressure of Santos could get him, but at the end of the day, Santos doesn't hit hard enough to knock out Barlow, in my opinion. I think Barlow's going to knock out Santos, and he's going to do it within 3 minutes in this matchup. Now we can move up to Bruno Silva versus Hyun Sung Park. Now, Hyun Sung Park had a pretty poor performance against Tatsuro Taira. Now, I do know that he did fight on short notice in that matchup. He saved the main event, but Tatsuro Taira truly did just dominate him in every single area of the fight. He beat him on the feet, he beat him on the ground, and just Hyun Sung Park did not have a single answer for Tatsuro Taira, and it did really show that Hyun Sung Park just is not quite ready for the top level of the flyweight division. Now, that's fine, because that's the top 5 of the flyweight division we're talking about right now, and Bruno Silva hasn't quite reached that in his career. Now, he has reached the top 15, of course, and he does have a couple of good wins. You know, I think he was the first person to ever drop Tyson Nam. I could be wrong about that, but he did finish Tyson Nam a few years ago. And then after that, he has lost to Van and Karp, who are both contenders in their own right. So if Hyun Sung Park can go out there and get a finish over Bruno Silva, that will also kind of show that Hyun Sung Park is also a prospect. Now, unlike Karp and Van, so Hyun Sung Park's skill set mostly does rely on the grappling, and I know that Bruno Silva is a pretty good grappler, being a very big-time training partner of Henry Cejudo throughout his career, and he does hit really hard on the feet for a flyweight. But I think that Hyun Sung Park is good enough to avoid the big shots of Silva, should be able to get Silva down and also get his own offensive grappling going. Now, I don't believe in the minus 250 line here. I do think that this fight should be a lot closer, and Bruno Silva would probably be a pretty good underdog, honestly, in this fight, but I'm going to be picking Park. And I think this is where the underdogs start, because I'm picking Jourdain, who is a favorite. He was a dog, was he not, at one point? Or am I just tripping? Okay, I'm picking Charles Jourdain. I really thought that he was a favorite. Now, I do like Davy Grant a lot. Do I pick David? Do I pick David? He's getting so old, man. That's the thing about, like, he beat them on Blackshear. I actually can't justify picking Charles Jourdain, you know. I'm going to pick Davy Grant. No, no. Charles Jourdain's looks good since moving to 135, but that was against Victor Henry, who's like been so inconsistent in the UFC. Wow, I was really confident going into this. I was going to pick Jourdain. But Grant's really good at striking. You know, he's shown that he can grapple defensively. He has struggled in the past against grapplers, though. I want to say it was against the great Rafael Assunção, which he got a big comeback submission over. The win over Blackshear really puts me off, you know, because that's a really good win to have. But from memory, Blackshear didn't wrestle as much as he probably should have. He should have beaten Daniel Marcos as well. I don't really believe in Jourdain that much, but I think just given the fact that I was locking him in before, I'm going to lock him in here. Very low confidence pick. Very low confidence pick. I'm going to lock in Jourdain. And the reason why is I think that Jourdain's going to be bricked up. His brother just got signed to the UFC. He's going to be in a good mood. And I think that he's going to show up and show out. That was the worst breakdown maybe I've ever done in my entire life. Let's move on. Kyle Nelson takes on Matt Frevola. I am surprised Matt Frevola's fighting. I really thought that this guy was going to retire. I thought that Freezy ended his career. I cannot believe that he's still doing it. And once again, I also thought that Matt Frevola was an underdog, but he's not. Kyle Nelson is so honestly weird to me because I have never really thought that this guy was any good, but he just went on a crazy win streak in 2023, 2024. And then, of course, he got fraud checked by Steve Garcia. And I think that Matt Frevola should be able to knock him out as well. You know, he does have that skill set where he can go out there, be aggressive, shoot takedowns. The worry is that he did get brutally knocked out by Freezy. That was one of my knockouts of the year. In fact, I think it was my knockout of the year because I genuinely thought that we were never going to see Matt Frevola in the UFC octagon again. So I'm shocked that he's back. But I still do think that the skill set is better than Nelson's. I just don't really think that Nelson's really showing me really much that he can sort of deal with Frevola's super pressure forward style and eat the shots. I know he's a tough guy. He hasn't been finished much at all. But I do think that Frevola is going to hit hard enough at 155 pounds to put his lights out. So give me Frevola by knockout. And it's making me realize I'm not picking as many underdogs on the card as I really thought I was. This is scary. Anyways, Cody Gibson takes on Archie Lung. Archie Lung, please be a dog. Please. Please. He is plus 140. Okay, because I am picking Archie Lung in this matchup. I do think he does beat Cody Gibson. The thing about Gibson is I really like him a lot. I think his fight against Brad Katona was amazing. But since then, we haven't really seen Cody Gibson show up that greatly. You know, he just kind of looks like he's got one round of cardio where he goes all out. He throws a lot of volume. He shoots takedowns a lot. But after that, he doesn't really have much left. And I know that Cody Gibson is going to come into this matchup against the Mongolian murderer, shooting takedowns. And I know that Archie Lung's takedown defense isn't amazing. He does have losses to grapplers in the past. But the thing is, these really good grapplers that have been able to take him down haven't been able to finish him. He went the distance against Raul Rosas Jr. He went the distance. He did not go the distance against Aiemann Zahabi. That was a very quick KO loss. But he also went the distance against Cody Djorden in 2021. So he has been going out there against these guys that have been trying to grapple him, take him down, and he's been able to survive and not get finished. And I just don't think that Cody Gibson's going to be able to finish him early. And I do believe that his cardio is better than Gibson's, and he's going to be able to kind of put it on Gibson in the later rounds. So I'm picking Archie Lung. Manon Fiorot takes on Jasmine Jasudavicius. I've got to go with Manon Fiorot, and the reason why is I still don't really know. I don't actually know what I just did then, to be honest with you. I don't know how to use my computer. I actually think I'm cooked. I actually might be cooked. No, we're back. We're back. Okay. Jasmine Jasudavicius. I just cannot get the Tracy Cortez performance out of my mind. I really can't. Because it was really bad. Like, her striking just was not good at all. And it made me believe that Tracy Cortez was good at fighting. So, because of that, I've got to go with Fiorot, you know. The thing is, Jasmine Jasudavicius' biggest weakness in her game is her boxing. She's not getting any younger. I actually cannot believe that she's nearly 37 years old. She doesn't look 37 years old, like at all, to be honest with you. But I do think that Manon Fiorot is going to go out there and just have the much better boxing than Jasmine Jasudavicius. And despite this fight being in Canada, to my understanding, Canada pretty much is France. So Manon Fiorot might even have the home advantage here in this matchup. So I do think that Fiorot does win, I think there are striking so much better than Jasmine's. Now, I do know that she can get taken down, and Jasmine's a really good offensive wrestler and grappler, and you probably could argue that Jasmine should have a title shot right now. So, it is pretty tough that she has to take on, I would say, maybe the toughest matchup possible for Jasmine Jasudavicius against Fiorot. And you could also maybe even argue this. No, I was going to mention interim belt, but it's Whaley that's given up her belt. Anyways, I'm picking Fiorot. I think she's the much better striker. And we can move on to the next underdog that I am picking, which is Marlon Vera against Aiemann Zahabi. Aiemann Zahabi, I think that he's got the perfect style to just get slept by Marlon Vera. I really do. The thing about Cheeto is he is the most frustrating fighter to ever watch because he will take rounds off, he will take minutes off rounds just to eventually try and win, But the thing is about Aiemann Zahabi is he is a pretty low volume striker in general. He's not really a guy that's just going to go out there and be winning the minutes against Marlon Vera anyways before Marlon Vera eventually decides that he wants to win the fight. He actually could be a guy that might be so low volume. Maybe Marlon Vera is going to win the minutes he doesn't even plan on winning anyway. And I do think that Vera hits hard enough to knock out Zahabi. Zahabi is interesting to me because I think I have picked against them a lot. I think I picked Aldo to beat him. I'm pretty confident I picked Fiorot to beat him. I can't remember if I picked Munoz to beat him either. But the thing is about Zahabi, man, he does keep looking better and better every time he does step up in competition. But I know Cheeto's on a losing streak, but that's to O'Malley and to Figueiredo. Both guys that, are at the top of the division. And maybe Zahabi's at the top of the division. I just haven't seen the vision yet. But I think that Cheeto's going to knock him out. I'm picking Marlon Vera by KO in this fight. And now we can move up to Holland versus Mallet. Now, here's the thing. If Kevin Holland beat Daniel Rodriguez, I would have picked picked Kevin Holland to win this fight. Because Kevin Holland, man, like what the fuck, honestly. This guy, I swear, man, he has you thinking that he's back. He beat Ponzinibbio, he beat Chiesa, and it's like, oh my god, maybe Kevin Holland's gonna do something. He kind of memes a performance out there against JDM, tries to win a robbery, and then he kind of memes a performance against MVP, looks like shit, kind of looks like shit against Macau, and then just looks like shit for 2 years, and he beats Gunnar Nelson in a decent enough fight, and then he beats Luque in the second round, and it's like, oh my god, they've given him Daniel Rodriguez, a man that's in his 50s, a man that is old enough to be my grandfather. He should be able to win, and maybe we're going to get a ranked Kevin Holland, and then he shits the bed, and he loses to Rodriguez, and he looks like shit again. So, given the trend, he's probably going to look like shit against Mike Mallet, but the thing is, Mike Mallet got magnied in the third round. What are we doing? But the thing is about Mallet, man, he actually is quite good. I know he's 34 years old, so he is one of the oldest fighters in the UFC roster right now, but his striking's pretty solid. He did look really good against Adam Fugit. He did look pretty good against Radke, who's he's okay. He's not that good, but he's okay. Trevin Giles is alright. I think he's been cut, though, which is pretty sad. I mean, what are we doing, man? Mike Mallet is the BJJ coach at Team Alpha Male, which is why I picked him as the underdog on the Contender Series against Simone Smatrisky many, many years ago. I think that Mallet's a good enough striker. I think he's a good enough grappler to deal with Holland, man. I just don't believe in Holland anymore, man. I keep going up and down on Holland, and right now I'm down on him. I think that Mallet should win if he grapples. He's going to need to grapple, though, in my opinion. And honestly, Holland, I just don't know if he's going to be able to keep up with the grappling of Mallet. And honestly, here's the thing. If Mallet gets submitted by Kevin Holland, he might lose his job as the BJJ coach at Team Alpha Male. They might have to go to someone else. But anyways, Reinier Djorden takes on Brendan Allen. I think Reinier Djorden wins. Now, here's the thing, though. I saw him fight Gerald Meerschaert. This is the worst thing that ever happened to me. Because I watched him fight Gerald Meerschaert, and I thought to myself, oh my god, this guy fucking sucks. Because he was lucid on the feet against GM3. And this motherfucker is going out there, submitted Kevin Holland in the first round, knocked out the UFC's cash cow Bo Nickel, absolutely sent Bo Nickel to absolute irrelevancy. I've never even heard of this guy since. And then he beats Robert Whittaker. Dude, I picked Robert Whittaker with so much confidence in that fight. And he just memes his way to the top. Maybe that is just the middleweight division. It's like Dricus du Plessis become the champion, defended the belt a couple of times. With what skill set? He just kind of does whatever the fuck he wants to do in the cage, and it just works. And he's taking on Brendan Allen, who is just a fighter that has also got a pretty good skill set for Dorita to beat, to be honest with you, because I don't really know of how Brendan Allen's going to deal with Dorita's striking. And I know that Brendan Allen is a grappler, but I don't know if he's going to be able to deal with Dorita's grappling either, because that's what Dorita's known for. He's a European BJJ champion. I mean, two weight class champion at one championship. We're going to see how the South Korean guy does on the Contender Series in week 10, who fought for the belt twice himself. But Brendan Allen, man, against Vettori, that wasn't a very great performance because Vettori just kind of, is pretty stationary. It was a striking fight. I thought that Brendan Allen's fight IQ in that fight was also quite questionable. And he lost to Hernandez, who I guess you could say is maybe a similar matchup to how Dorita kind of fights. But I want to actually look at the matchup against Jacob Malkoon. Now, here's the thing. I actually thought that Brendan Allen won this fight, and that was a hot take at the time. A lot of people thought that Jacob Malkoon won that fight. And that just tells me that he can get taken down. And that is a concern when he does take on Dorita, who I think is a better grappler than him. So I do think that RDR is just going to meme his way on the feet with absolutely no head movement whatsoever with his hands, not even by his chin, but by up in the sky like he's doing jumping jacks. I don't even know what Dorita's style even is, but it just works, and I think he's just going to make it happen. Against Allen, I think he beats Allen. Allen's also taking it on short notice because it was Dorita versus Hernandez, I think, which would have been, honestly, a really good fight as well. So I do wonder what they're going to do with the title right now. I mean, it just comes down to Khamzat Chimaev's inactivity. And the reason why Chimaev being the champion does suck is he is going to be a really, really inactive champion. So I guess right now there's a pretty big line of contenders. And Dricus du Plessis wouldn't have had a fight booked by now. I do know that, but it's just when is Chimaev going to fight next? Because it's probably not going to be until May next year. Let's be real here. He just doesn't fight often enough as a champion, which does kind of suck. But I do think RDR is going to win this fight. I don't think either of these guys beat Chimaev. But knowing my luck, RDR would just sub him, wouldn't he? That's the picks. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys in the next one.